Nation. Join us now for Family Mix Mondays with licensed professional counselor Jaketra Bryant. Tune in as Jaketra shows the different dynamics that make up family. Whether you represent the nuclear family, single parent, extended, grandparent, or blended family, Jaketra has tips and advice designed to strengthen your family structure. Source Nation, here is your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Good evening, Source Nation. I am your host, Jaketra Bryant, and I want to welcome you to Family Mix Mondays, which is a show where I will be discussing breaking cycles and building back up our families. Discussions from intentional parenting, how to stop being a guest in your home, communication, and many more topics to mix it in for all types of families. Tonight, we are continuing our series of how parents' involvement affects students' achievement. And we have just guest after guest who are going to provide so much insight from the school system point of view, from principals, teachers, counselors, youth mentors. Like, sky is the limit for this month. And so I want you to make sure you're tuning in each Monday with me to continue this series. But before we jump into that, I want to stop to thank our sponsors, and they are WGLRO.com, Scott Cares Foundation, Urban Grandstand Digital, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Blend to Blend Juice Bar Boutique, Renovations, and New Covenant of Praise Worship Center. So tonight's guest is Dr. Milledge. And Dr. Milledge is going to shine some light on how parents' involvement affects students' achievement from the elementary standpoint. And so this month we're going to have just different people that are going to speak from elementary, middle school, and higher education. So Dr. William Milledge will be joining me after the break, so stay tuned.
Source Nation, stay tuned. You're listening live to Family Mix Mondays with your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Source Radio Network is just one of the many platforms that is used to fulfill dreams of our listeners and create a purpose that will impact the lives of our communities, cities, and the world. It is often said that great things will happen when a group of driven people work together to accomplish one goal. We're giving people the opportunity to have a voice, translate words that haven't been heard, and paint pictures that no one has seen. Source Radio Network is fueling your life's purpose. How can you listen? www.blogtalkradio.com/Source Radio.
Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Family Mix Mondays with your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Welcome back, Source Nation. Again, I'm your host, Jaketra Bryant. And as stated before the break, we are continuing our series of how parents' involvement affects students' achievement. And I mentioned before the break that we have Dr. William Milledge in the studio tonight to continue with our series and speaking from the elementary standpoint. But before he gets in, let me tell you a little about him. So Dr. William Milledge, Jr. is an educator with 20 years' experience as a classroom teacher and as an instructional leader. With a commitment to teaching and learning, Dr. Milledge looks for ways to incorporate and implement active inquiry, critical thinking, and problem solving with his faculty, staff, parents, and students. Exhibiting the ability to quickly analyze situations and offer problem-solving alternatives has proven to be an effective tool in his career and has been met with success in terms of changing the culture and climate schools. which has also affected the surrounding communities. His energetic demeanor provides a natural ability to empower others and initiate change. And so I do believe we have Dr. Milledge in the studio with me tonight. So hello, Dr. Milledge, and welcome to Family Mix Mondays. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, hello, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. So before we jump into our discussion, why don't you take an opportunity to just tell Source Nation just more about you and any new things you have going on?
Well, beyond being an educator, first and foremost, I'm a husband and a father. I have an 8-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter. I've been happily married for 14 years now. So not only is education important to me, but being an involved parent is just as important.
Yes, so agree. And again, thank you so much just for being here. And so, Source Nation, if you are just tuning in, this is Dr. William Milledge, and he is an elementary school teacher, and we are continuing our series of how parents' involvement affects student achievement. And so if you would like to join in on this discussion with Dr. Milledge and myself, the number to call in is 619-924-0933 and press option 1. That's 619-924-0933, press option 1. So, Dr. Milledge, I don't even believe like you nor I set the elementary school. So I'm sure those teachers want a quick shout out and want to know who is providing this awesome insight and from where.
All right, this is Dr. William Milledge, Jr., here in Montgomery, Alabama, Montgomery Public School System, Fitzpatrick Elementary, where we have the best faculty and staff when it's all said and done, because they are here for the benefit of the students.
Yes. And so they thank you, I'm sure. And I personally know one student there. I mean, she's not a student, but a teacher there. And I know he cares about the education of those students, too. And so let us jump into our discussion. And so let's start with the overall title that I've birthed this from, and how does parental involvement affect students' achievement? And so I ask you that, Dr. Milledge, how does the parental involvement affect student achievement for our elementary age students?
Well, parental involvement has a major effect on the achievement of elementary age students, but it begins really way before they enter the walls of kindergarten. A lot of times before the child enters kindergarten, the parent has a great deal of impact on how their child is going to excel at school. Something as simple as teaching them the letters of the alphabet, teaching them to count, teaching them proper behavior, socialization skills. So the parental involvement piece starts long before they actually come into school. Once they actually make it into school, those students who have that parental involvement piece are twice as likely to first and foremost enjoy school. Secondly, find success in school, and then overall have that goal set, because they realize that school is important to their parents. Therefore, it automatically, in a sense, becomes important to the child.
I agree. That's good. I remember when Christian, we all know my famous Christian. I remember when Christian was just a baby, and I got my master's pregnant. And so Christian has always been raised around just watching education, from my brother getting his master's and my sister getting her master's MBA and then me getting my master's. And I remember him just being a baby, and I'm rocking him and completing my papers, and him watching me just continue to thrive for higher education. And you're right, the model started right there. And so although we're still working on him when it comes to loving school, he still understands that, hey, this seems to be important, an important part of life. And so I agree, modeling that is so important.
Oh, definitely. I mean, children learn from what's deemed as those influential people who are initially there in their lives, which ultimately is the parent. And through talking with the parent talking to the child, and the child observing what the parent does, that's where the child actually gets that that love and that motivation to do whatever it is the parent is doing, or actually be more involved in whatever is deemed important to the parent. And that's why parental involvement is so important when it comes to school.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so, like, why do you think there is a lack of involvement and participation, particularly when that's the beginning steps with elementary age kids?
Well, from my experience, one area that we seem to see a recurring theme in is parents who, when they were in school, didn't have the best experience. So they kind of have an intimidation factor when it comes to school, be it volunteering at the school, coming to PTA, being involved in anything that's taking place at school, and then even within the home, doing homework, talking to their child about school. And it's not that they don't care, it's just that their experiences they didn't have the best experiences. So when it comes to dealing with their child in school, they rather be more hands-off. But again, that's I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. You can go ahead.
But like I said, again, that's just one area. Some parents simply don't feel comfortable in the school because of past experience. But also you have the issue where parents aren't familiar with what's going on in school. They're not familiar with the programs. They feel a little intimidated because the mindset is, well, when I was in school, we didn't do that, or we didn't have as much work, or we weren't working at that level. And it's kind of an intimidation factor between the parent and the child, whereas it really shouldn't be, because, again, the majority of the school doors are open and welcoming for the parent to come in and get that experience and understanding so they can be beneficial in helping the child at home.
That's exactly what I was going to actually ask more of. I've heard people before mention that, like, I don't even know the math that my kid is bringing home. Like, how am I supposed to help him or her? So I was wondering, like, is that a factor? Do you have many parents coming in who don't understand the level that their child is on when it comes to the math or the science? And that plays a role as to how they're going to become involved, or if.
Oh, yes, ma'am, definitely. But the key to that is, and that's where we all play a part in, the teacher has to have that open line of communication, but the parent has to have that confidence and trust in the teacher and in the school to let it be known, I'm not as comfortable with this as I would like to be. And again, that's that opportunity to come into the school, volunteer, come to the classrooms, watch the teachers instruct, and get a clearer understanding and more in-depth understanding. And it's basically, my rule of thumb is whatever grade my child is in, that's what grade I'm in at that time. And I don't know it all. So at that point, I have to reach out to the teacher. I have to reach out to the school so I can actually be a part of what's going on with my child's education.
That's good, because I'm sure that is a lot of struggle when it comes. And we got one piece where it's volunteer work, another piece where it's like just coming in just to sit for lunch, but there's another piece that's another beast to fight through, is that education, where parents don't feel as if they're competent enough to come inside the classrooms or to provide homework, or feel as if they even have a place because maybe they don't have the higher education. So I can definitely see that being a particular barrier or a wall to have to break down to get some more parents involved in the schools.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. So as an educator/teacher, a former educator, who's still educating in some sense, but so now principal, what do you hear from your teachers about the lack of support in the classrooms and the schools, and how that affects their students?
Well, they truly long to have that parental support, that parental involvement. And I have a number of teachers, and I've worked with a number of teachers who have a great deal of experience, and they remember how motivated the students were, say, years ago when parents were more involved. They remember when students were excelling. They remember when students really had that passion about coming to school and had the mindset of setting goals and looking forward and just wanting to do better and overall wanting to make their parents proud. Whereas now there seems to be a hole there. That piece is missing within the students, and we're trying to find ways to motivate students because sometimes, for the most part, they're not coming to school motivated to learn. And the teachers really feel like if the parents would just let it be known that they too find education important, be it through conversation with their child, be it through helping with homework, coming in, eating lunch, volunteering in the classroom, then that child would automatically be motivated, whereas that's a missing piece right now.
Yes, I agree. I think this is something that's very unfortunate across the board. Like, no matter if we're in Georgia to Alabama to like Mississippi, wherever, I think there's a lack of involvement that's happening in our school systems. And I don't know if it is culture or what, but I know it happens. And so my son is at private school, and so we're not exempt from it, whether from free education to private. There is very minimal. I can't stress that word enough.
And see, when you have more, when you have more parental involvement, you have far less behavioral problems. And if you have the behavioral problems or lack of behavioral problems in place, then academics excel as well. It is truly hard for any educator to teach a child reading, math, science, social studies when they're continuously having to address behaviors. But when you have that parental involvement piece, when the parents are involved, when the parents are aware of what's going on, you don't see those behaviors as often.
Right, I agree. I've had my challenges with my son, but I think one thing that held us above water, besides I'm going to be all in everybody's business in school, was the fact that I was willing to be present and to assist and to just to educate the teachers also about like my son and the factors that involve that and just be there. And so if anything, I think I'm there a little too much. But like I think when I first started this particular new school, the lady, I think she was letting me know I was there a little too often. But I was like, well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. But someone else, when I was branching this topic, and I was talking to somebody Saturday, and he was like, I wonder if the same thing applies for predominantly white schools as they do predominantly black schools as far as parents' involvement. So have you ever seen that as a difference? Because you're at a predominantly black school, correct?
I am.
So, yeah, and I'm at a predominantly black private school.
Okay. But, in terms of parental involvement, I think a lot of times it supersedes ethnic backgrounds, socioeconomic levels. I think it supersedes. It's nowadays, everything is so fast-paced. When I was growing up, two-parent household, Mom made sure homework was done. Dad came home from work and ensured that homework was done based on what Mom said, and he would check it too. So we knew from both angles that the education piece was important, whereas now you have more single-family homes, which is not a problem, but then even as educators, you have to be aware of that. You have to be aware of the culture and the climate and the diversity within your school. and you have to try to work within those parameters as well. And that's an important piece. That's a very important piece because it's easy for us as educators to sit back and just simply go, the parents are simply not involved. But that's not necessarily always the case. Not trying to make excuses for any parents, but sometimes when you have a better understanding, you're able to better put things in place to meet each other halfway.
I agree. Oh, that's now you said a great handful. I need you to repeat that at the end so these parents and teachers can get that part too. But I remember like one of the private schools my son went to, they required parents actually to participate and volunteer for a minimum of, I think it was like 5 or 10 hours. Sounds very, very small, but they actually had to put a policy in place just to get parents inside and sign. Now, I don't remember, like, how effective it was, but I remember, like, a lot of pushback from other parents and just kind of parking lot conversations where they would actually be like, I can't believe they're making us come in here for 5 hours or 10 hours when we have other things to do. And I was like, oh. And at this time, Christian was like 3 and 4, so I was thinking, oh, wait, this is a problem? Like, coming to the school?
But excellent example, because that's a great idea, but then I have to sit back and wonder, as a parent, first and foremost, how much were the parents involved in that decision in terms of putting that policy in place? Now, I can turn around here and say, okay, I need my parents here to put in 5 hours a month of volunteer time, but can I really expect that when I have parents who may work 2 or 3 jobs? When I have parents who they're the only breadwinner in the house? And that's not going to be all the parents, not by any means. But at that point, you have to understand, again, where your parents are coming from, and then make them a part of the decision-making process to help you with increasing that parental involvement piece.
I agree. I think always if you, when you take a person's autonomy away, then I think it always leads to a lot of pushback whenever anybody feels like that, across the board. And so the only thing I would say, like to piggyback on that, is like how we talked about earlier, sitting down for lunch goes a long way. Whenever I go and take my son some lunch, I have to almost fight all the kids off because they all want to sit by me. And they all want to be there and want to know what I'm eating because I brought him some Chick-fil-A in, or I'm just sitting there. So you can tell, like what I gathered from that, I was like, man, you can tell I don't think their parents ever show up. Because as soon as one gets there, it's almost like the president has walked through the building.
Oh, yeah, you immediately become everybody's mother. And our children long for that attention. If it's only, just once a month or once every other month, to come in and show your face, to come in and let your child know, basically, I came to your school to check on you because it's important to me, means the world. And it goes a long way. But you have to make that time, and you have to make that a priority. We all have to work. We all have things we have to do to put things in place. But ultimately, once we have children, it's no longer about us. We are completely out of the picture. We are here for the children to ensure that we're able to be a part of creating a productive citizen to move forward in the world.
And it's definitely a challenge. And so we're not definitely saying that it's easy, but it's definitely a challenge. So Source Nation, if you are tuning in, then I just want to reiterate, we are talking to Dr. William Milledge, an elementary school teacher out of Montgomery, Alabama, shining some light on our series of how parents' involvement affects student achievement. And the phone lines are open if you would like to ask him a question or myself a question. Number to dial in is 619-924-0933 and press option 1. And so, Dr. Milledge, I was wondering if we can actually discuss some of the benefits to both our children and our parents if we were to get them involved more into the school.
Oh, definitely. Started with the children. Your children are more active, regardless of the background, socioeconomic status, parent education. When the parents are involved, when the parents show interest, when the parent lets it be known to the child that their education is important, your child becomes more active. You see better grades, higher self-esteem, self-motivation, higher aspirations, overall positive attitude, positive behaviors. Um, all of those things that affect a child's academics as well as the whole child. So when the parent is involved and the parent is letting it be known that hey, this is important to me, then you see all of those things as far as the child goes.
I agree. So what about when it comes to that child that has that may be actually doing well? Because I think a lot of times we think about, let's get the parents involved where the kid may have some academic or behavioral challenges. But a child that is actually doing academically well can go dismissed and slide under the cracks. So what about, like, even some benefits there when, hey, you're like, oh, my child is doing well, parent home looks like this, but how can that even still play a role when it's not a problem area?
Well, our children live in the real world. So just because they've done well and continue to do well, who's to say that at some point in time something may happen, a variable may come up, a factor may come about that causes that child to begin to slide back. But if you're involved, if you're a part of what's going on with that child, if you're having those conversations with your child, and that's dealing with academics or anything else, then you have a better chance and a better opportunity of ensuring that that child doesn't gradually fall between the cracks. Also, keeping in mind, talking to your child, reading with your child, going over homework with your child, that gives you the chance to see, hey, is my child really up to par in terms of what's being taught and what he or she may need to know? Because, you can look at a report card and feel great, but if you're not involved in working closely with your child, those A's and B's may not necessarily be A's and B's when it comes to finding out what your child really knows.
Yes. So, Dr. Milledge, we actually have a caller coming in. So, caller with the last four digits of 1242. You are on the line live with Dr. Milledge. Hello.
How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Good. How are you?
I'm all right.
You're live with Dr. Milledge.
Yes, I have a question. What would your take be on the effect and the involvement of parents even before their children step foot in school? Because children learn so much before they even go to kindergarten. So what would your take be on, I guess, providing a culture in the home, that enforces education and learning? Because a lot of times that you hear people speak, it's always when the child is in school or maybe when a problem has come up. But how would you advise parents with regards to setting that culture before the child even attends school?
Okay, excellent question. And I think as I was stating earlier, just what you're saying, the parent is the child's first teacher. And that child is really going to be the mirror image of that parent. So that's that time where the child develops certain behaviors, socialization skills. All of that takes part into a child's being able to learn effectively. Teaching a child, like I said, sitting down, having a child learn to spell his or her name, learning the alphabet. And I mean actually recognizing the alphabet, not just knowing the ABC song, recognizing numbers. That gives the child kind of a leg up entering kindergarten, because Nowadays, we push for preschool, we push for Head Start and things of that nature. But again, the child should not come in a complete clean slate starting in kindergarten. And a lot of that education can take place at home. A lot of that education can take place, again, from the first teacher, the parent. But the parent has to put that time in. And that time has to go beyond sitting a child in front of an iPad, computer, cell phone, or anything of that nature, and letting technology teach the child. Your child needs some actual interaction with another person.
Good. So, do you have any other questions or a follow-up, caller?
Well, I would just ask because I think that helps the teacher as well. I recall having a conversation with the teacher, and she informed me that, and I believe this was in kindergarten or first grade maybe, and she was complaining about parents complaining to her about, why their children had not learned certain things at a certain pace. And she made the point to me and my wife that, parents have children, I think, 5 years before they even enter school. And that, during that 5 years, as the doctor said, so many things could be learned. And I think it also, benefits the teacher as well, because parents are also responsible what kind of children they send to the school for the teacher.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I agree. Those are some really, really good points. I'm glad you asked that question because, before, just like you said before, like just preparing that and coming into the school system and how that's even a vital part. So I'm glad you called to ask that question. So thank you for being a listener and for calling in. And thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. So, speaking, as he was speaking, I was definitely thinking of, what do you do when you have parents that don't participate under no circumstances, and you know that this will be something, that's beneficial to the children?
Well, you can't give up on the parent completely because you have their most precious gift. Even if you don't believe that the parent is actually going to participate, you still have to provide opportunities for volunteering. You still have to, as an educator, provide those moments for interactive homework assignments, just continuously communicating with that parent. And I don't mean communicating with that parent if the child is misbehaving. I mean communicating in terms of academics are concerned, and not just calling to say, well, your child is failing at this time or he didn't do his work in class. Keeping them abreast of what's going on in your classroom. That's an important piece because, again, you still have these parents who simply don't feel comfortable coming to the school. But providing them that opportunity to still be aware and be a part of and be knowledgeable of what's going on in the school, what's going on in their child's class, still allows them to become a part and hopefully helps them realize how welcoming the school can be. Years ago, the school was an extension of the community was an extension of the church, and the church was an extension of the home. And right now in our society, all of those things are separate entities. And I think that kind of creates some division as well.
Yes. Very sad, but true points. Very sad. And so I guess, like I said, I'm in Atlanta, and unfortunately that's something that happens in the public and the private. And so we definitely must continue to speak out and do something about that. So I'm so grateful for it. Even people like you and the other guests that I will have on that will actually be letting people know that this thing, like where it starts and how the impact really plays a role. And so you mentioned something to the caller that really just triggered a thought in my head about the technology. And so not the portion of like them with iPads and Starfall, which Starfall is a good program, so things like that. But I wonder how much of, like with technology moving, like to where it is, how much of that has played a role into parents staying out of the schools because emails are there, because school portals are there. So do you happen to see a change there?
Well, technology is a great thing, but on that same note, that shouldn't hinder that actual personal touch. What we tend to see is, yes, we have these different programs and different interactive educational programs on the computer, but nothing can ever take the place of a parent actually, say a kindergartner, taking time to go hand over hand with their child when they're writing, taking time to point to a letter and have that child tell them what the letter is. Because they can sit at a computer and do that all day, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they've learned it, that they're holding on to it, that they're retaining it. Because a lot of times our children now look at the computer as just another game. The computer is not the role model that our children need. The iPad, the television, those are not the role models that our children need. Our children look to us to be that role model, to be that voice of reasoning, to be that individual that lets them know, hey, education is important, and I'm going to spend this time with you. I'm not going to say, okay, you can go ahead and get on the computer. I'm not going to say, okay, go ahead and cut the television on and turn to an educational channel. I'm going to spend this time with you. I mean, now, realistically, we'll do it for football, basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball. We see that little athlete coming out, and we'll put all the time in the world. We'll leave work early for practice. We'll stay up late at night waiting for the lights to come on the ball field. Well, let's burn the lights late at night for this homework. Let's burn the light late at night when we're sitting at the dinner table and we're talking about, hey, what did you do at school today? Or how was your day at school? And don't just accept, oh, it was okay. No, what did you do at school? What happened in reading? What happened in math? What happened in science and social studies? You'd be amazed at some of the things that will come back up, and you will go, hey, you know what? I remember when I did that in school. That's what our children need, that interaction piece.
That's good. That's good. I agree, because I know, like, as a person with me, like, preparing for my doctorate, I definitely, like, Christian has caused me just to go back all through the years. And then tutoring also on the side. I feel like I have worked through each grade level, but it's been a great refresher because they're inquisitive, and I'm able to participate in his conversation. And if I don't know the answer, it's a journey for us to go to the Fern Bank or go to a science like fair and really explore that opportunity together. And that creates more bonding and communication, openness, and comfort within the families. So I agree. Like, it just doesn't, it's not just comes into the schools. Like, it's so much more when it comes to building this bond that can happen with our kids when it comes to playing a role into how well they achieve in life, and period.
And it affects everybody. I mean, we talked about the children having better self-esteem and higher motivation, but the parents have a better understanding of what's really going on in school. Then when they have a better understanding, they're more likely to come in and try to assist or try to be a part of. They want to be a part of the change. And then what's very important in terms of parents is having their perception about the school change. Sometimes our parents sit back and they listen to the news, they listen to the ever popular street committee, but come in and see for yourself what's going on in your child's school. Come in and see what's going on in your child's classroom. That we need to take ownership of the perceptions that we have of our schools and stop letting other people tell us what our schools are like. And then when we have that, then your educators, your teachers, your principals, custodians, cafeteria staff, everybody within the building, their morale is lifted. They have a greater respect for what they do and where they're doing it. And then they have a better understanding of the parents, the families, the diversity, and they have a better respect for those individuals as well. And then you have that overall job satisfaction because everybody's working together to make this, make a complete turnaround in a area of growth within the school that everybody can be proud of. And then even back to the community, once your school thrives like that and the community sees what's happening, then you become an established stronghold in the community. You become the center point of the community, and then you have better community support and more respect beyond the community, beyond the strip that your street may be on, because everybody wants to be a part of something great. But we all have to do it together to make it great.
That's good. Oh, my goodness, that's good. So we actually have a question from the chat room for you. So, Dr. Milledge, what is your take on children being passed on to the next grade even though they are not ready, but the parent insists that they move on?
Wow. In all honesty, why set our children up for failure? And I know that's a broad question, and that's answering a question with a question. But why push a child on when they've not received or not retained what was needed in the grade that they're presently in? What should have been happening, because the child didn't all of a sudden start failing. This didn't happen overnight. And even with going back to you speaking of technology and looking in the portals, you have access to that. But again, come in and see what's going on with your child. And if you can't make it in, be it late at night when you get off work, or if you have to get up early in the morning and your child gets up early with you, and you sit down and read with your child, you should have an idea of where your child is. You should be having that conversation with your child's teacher. But even before you talk to your child's teacher, you should be having that conversation with your child. You should have an idea of where your child is and where they should be in terms of their grade level, where they should be functioning. But to come right at the end and want to boastfully say, I don't want my child held back, now what can be done? That's a disservice to the child. And research shows that gradually it catches up to the child. And that creates a completely different problem.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully at the end we have some great resources when it comes to tutoring, summer programs, sky's the limit, so that we can actually not have the saying, no child left behind, and really do what it takes to extend ourselves and resources and those things there. So hopefully at the end we'll be able to give that caller, as well as other callers, some great resources so they won't be left to the last minute of things. So we do have a caller calling in, Dr. Milledge. So caller with 6597, you are live with Dr. Milledge. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Milledge.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you. I do have actually kind of a twofold question. My question to you is, I heard you say earlier that you were kind of in a predominantly African-American school.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do, being that everything is data-driven, what do you do as the leader of that building to ensure that parents understand the data that they're reading? As a parent of an 8-year-old, one of the things that I noticed just this school year is that he's testing, but I'm not getting the data, or I'm not seeing the data. And then when I get it, actually I have questions about it. So what do you do with parents that you give them the sheet of paper, they don't understand what they're reading? What do you do in your school to ensure that parents, number one, are understanding the data and giving it to them in a way that they can understand and what they're going to do with that data after you give that data to them? That's my first question. My next question is, or do you want to answer the first question? I'm sorry.
I can.
Okay, yeah.
What we try to do here is provide that opportunity for parent workshops. Data can be overbearing, especially when we have a number of tests and there's constantly something coming home and it's just sent home and there's no opportunity to discuss, hey, what exactly is this and what does it mean? So what we try to do is we try to provide parent workshops because we do data meetings. So to ensure that, not only are we aware of what our data is and the faculty and staff is aware of what the data is, but the teachers take time to discuss the data with the students. Now, again, we're not looking for the students to go home and say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, this is what this means. But it does open the door up for conversation. But on that same note, providing parent workshops to discuss the data and allow the parents the opportunity to actually ask questions and make it a welcoming environment where they don't feel intimidated by the fact that they may not completely understand what the data means, gives them the opportunity to actually see the data for what it is and get a better understanding of what it's all about. So definitely just the parent workshops and giving them that opportunity to come in and discuss those things provides an open door for them. And again, then they can actually go home and, like the teachers do with the students, talk to them about what the data says, what their goals may possibly be in terms of taking the next step or the next test. And you just have that open forum with you and the child as well as you and the teacher and you and the school.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My next question. I'm a mother of an African American boy, and one thing that I've seen in looking at some of the data is that African American males are scoring lower than anybody in the United States, which is a problem for me. I have a little black boy, and my concern is, as a parent, is what do you think should be done to help improve this, especially in low-poverty schools? And I also noticed that the suspension rate and all that, they're high. It's like an African-American boy, he may forget his pencil. He goes to the office. Another student, whether it's African-American female or Caucasian female or male, and they call their parents. So what do you think should be done differently that you can probably help parents as a leader? What do you think could be done differently to improve this, number one, perceptions of not having the patience with African-American males? And that's a concern for me with my child going forward. As he gets in the upper grades, my concern gets greater. He's in the lower grade now. He's in the third grade. But as he gets older, the concern gets greater. So what do you see, or what do you think could be done in schools to change this perception of African-American males and to improve the scoring of African-American males?
Excellent question. And I mean, as a father of an African-American male, same age, 8, third grade, what we have to do first and foremost as parents, looking beyond being an educator, we have to take our schools back. We have to take ownership of our schools. We have to stop looking for and accepting the worst case scenario. We have to stop letting others tell us that it can't be done at that school because they're Title I, or that school's a bad school because of the neighborhood it's in. We have to take back our schools. We have to take ownership. We have to go back to when, if your child was doing something wrong, be it in school, be it walking home from school, be it on the weekend, there would not be a problem if I addressed your child and corrected that behavior. Not talking about putting hands on anybody, just coming in, being the positive role model and saying, hey, son, daughter, you know that was wrong. And we as parents not having problems with that. We are so divided and so disconnected from one another, which automatically disconnects us from each other's families, each other's children, that we have that division, and we're widening that gap. And that's before they really even come into the school doors. I mean, how many schools have we heard about that, oh, you don't want to live in that neighborhood because that school right there. Well, you know what? Let's take ownership back. Let's get back in the schools, and let's give them something positive to see. Let's help inspire them be what we want them to be, and let's be a part of the solution. And whatever it is that teacher may need, or whatever it is that other child may need that's not your child or my child, let's be a part of that as well. We simply have to take back our schools and stop letting others tell us that, you know what, these little black boys aren't making the grades. These little black boys aren't doing this. Well, you know what? I'm going to be in there, and I'm going to be a part of helping these little black boys be just as successful as the little black girls and any other girl or boy in this school, or any girl or boy in the school across town. We're going to be just as successful. And again, it's about getting in and being a part of the solution and seeing what we can do to help uplift our children, uplift these schools, uplift our neighborhoods.
Thank you so much, Dr. Milledge.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling, and stay tuned for next week's. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks.
All right, thanks. All right, bye-bye. So, Dr. Milledge, we actually have to wrap up, but this has been so awesome. I definitely wish we could do like a part 2 to you, because this has been so insightful on so many levels. And I love your village approach. Man, that's awesome. I love that. And so as we wrap up, I definitely want to give our Source Nation family a way to get in touch with you, ask further questions, and just pour back into you and get involved in whatever you're doing. So if you can let Source Nation family know how they can get in touch with you and just anything you have going on. Dr. Milledge? Hello, Dr. Milledge?
What?
Oh, okay.
Hello?
I was like, okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I was saying you could just...
Hello?
Anything you have going on so they can move forward and get in touch with you. How can Source Nation get in touch with you?
I can be reached at william.milledge@gmail.com. And that's MILLEDGE.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the series of how parental involvement affects the success of our children. This has been awesome. And so I definitely will invite you back. Yes, of course. This has been great. And so I definitely want to invite you back, and we may have to do a part 2. I'll be talking to you off the air about that. And so you have a great evening.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Goodbye.
So, Source Nation, that was Dr. William Milledge, principal of Fitzpatrick Elementary School in Montgomery, Alabama. He had so many great points to say, and I love his approach about the community all becoming one and helping one another, and how this actually continues on, almost like a domino effect. It just keeps going, and when one touches the other, except for this, is going to lead into a great picture if we all stay connected, from our parents coming in to our administration, just all having hands-on, and it benefits academically, socially, as well as being a part of the citizenship. And so I want to stop and thank our sponsors, and they are WGLRO.com, Scott Cares Foundation, Urban Grandstand Digital, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Blend to Blend Juice Bar Boutique, Renovations, and New Covenant Praise Worship Center. And as always, I can be reached via email at jabryant1913@gmail.com, Twitter at JaketraB, website www.b3mentalperformances.com. And my poem for the month, quote, is by Nicole C. Anderson. I am the person I am today because of all the people who have shaped me in every way. So join me next week to continue the series with Family Mix Mondays.
Get at me for beats, y'all.